All right, good morning, 6A, 6B, and 6G. We're getting close to finishing off our read aloud because of Winn, Dixie. We're going to be doing chapters 18 and 19, so we're close to the end of the book. The setting takes place mostly in three separate areas. Gloria Dump's house down there, Otis and the pet store, and the trailer park. So those are the three settings for chapters 18 and 19. One of the things that came to mind is in what we're going to learn, and we're going to be learning about these lozenges. And one of the things that came to my mind was the known as the Florida orange bird. And the Florida orange bird is a popular bird in Florida. Became really popular in the 1970s to promote Florida oranges. And then it became a kind of informal mascot for Florida, and then Disney later picked it up as well. Very iconic Florida bird. It's called the orange bird. Just some worthless knowledge that now you have in your brain. So we're going to start off with chapters 18 and 19. I'm just going to share the screen and we're going to get started quickly, and that's it. Yeah. All right, chapter 18. When we got to Gloria Dump's, I told her I had two surprises for her, and I asked her which one did she want first, the small one or the big one? The small one, said Gloria. I handed her the litmus lozenge, and she moved it around in her hands, feeling it. Candy? She said. Yes, ma'am, I told her. It's a litmus lozenge. Oh, Lord, yes, I remember these candies. My daddy used to eat them. She unwrapped the litmus lozenge and put it in her mouth and nodded her head. Do you like it? I asked her. Mm-hmm. She nodded her head slowly. It tastes sweet, but it also tastes like people leaving. You mean sad? I asked. Does it taste like sorrow to you? That's right, she said. It tastes sorrowful but sweet. What's surprise number two? A book, I said. A book? Uh-huh. I'm going to read it out loud to you. It's called Gone with the Wind. Miss Franny says it's a great book. It's about the Civil War. Do you know all about the Civil War? I have heard it mentioned a time or two, said Gloria, nodding her head and sucking on her litmus lozenge. It's going to take us a long time to read this book, I told her. There are 1,037 pages. Woo-wee, said Gloria. She leaned back in her chair and crossed her hands on her stomach. We best get started then. And so I read the first chapter of Gone with the Wind out loud to Gloria Dump. I read it loud enough to keep her ghosts away. And Gloria listened to it good. And when I was done, she said it was the best surprise she had ever had, and she wouldn't wait to hear chapter 2. That night, he gave the preacher the litmus lozenge right before he kissed me goodnight. What's this, he said. It's some candy Miss Franny's great-grandmother invented. It's called a litmus lozenge. The preacher unwrapped it, put it in his mouth, and after a minute, he started rubbing his nose and nodding his head. Do you like it? I asked him. It has a peculiar flavor. Root beer, I said. Something else. Strawberry? That too, but there's still something else. It's odd. I could see the preacher getting further and further away. He was hunching up his shoulders and lowering his chin and getting ready to pull his head inside his shell. There's a little comparison to the turtle again. That's a metaphor. It almost tastes a little melancholy, he said. Melancholy? What's that? Sad, the preacher said the preacher. He rubbed his nose some more. It makes me think of your mother. When Dixie sniffed at the candy wrapper in the preacher's hand. It tastes sad, he said. It must be a bad batch. No, I told him. I sat up in the bed. That's the way it's supposed to taste. Litmus came back from the war and his whole family was dead. His daddy died fighting. And his mama and his sister died from a disease and the Yankees burned down their house. And Litmus was sad, very sad, and he wanted more than anything in the whole world was something sweet. So he built a candy factory and made litmus lozenges. And he put all the sad he was feeling into the candy. My goodness, said the preacher. When Dixie snuffed the candy wrapper out of the preacher's hand and started chewing it. Give me that, I said when Dixie, but he wouldn't give it up. I had to reach inside his mouth and pull it out. You can't eat candy wrappers, I told him. The preacher cleared his throat. I thought he was going to say something important, maybe tell me something he remembered about my mama. But what he said was, Opal, I had a talk with Mrs. Dewberry the other day. She said that Stevie says that you called him a bald-headed baby. It's true, I said. I did. But he calls Gloria Dump a witch all the time. And he calls Otis slow. And once he even said that his mama said I should spend all my time with old ladies. That's what he said. I think you should apologize, said the preacher. Me, I said. Yes, he said. You tell Stevie you're sorry if you said anything that hurt his feelings. I'm sure he just wants to be your friend. I don't think so, I told him. I don't think he wants to be my friend. Some people have a strange way of going about making friends, he said. You apologize. Yes, sir, I said. Then I remembered Carson. Daddy, I said, do you know anything about Amanda Wilkinson? What kind of thing? Do you know something about her and someone named Carson? Carson was her brother. He drowned last year. He's dead? Yes, said the preacher. His family is still suffering a great deal. How old was he? 5, said the preacher. He was only 5 years old. Daddy, I said, how could you not tell me about something like that? Other people's tragedies should not be the subject of idle conversation. There was no reason for me to tell you. It's just that I needed to know, I said, because it helps explain Amanda. No wonder why she's so pinch-faced. What's that? Nothing, I said. Good night, India, Opal, the preacher said. He leaned over and kissed me, and I smelled the root beer and strawberry and sadness all mixed together on his breath. He patted Winn Dixie on the head and got up and turned off the light and closed the door. I didn't go to sleep right away. I lay there and thought how life was like a litmus lozenge. There's a simile there. She's comparing her life to a candy. How the sweet and the sad were all mixed up together and how hard it was to separate them out. It was confusing. Daddy, I shouted. After a minute, he opened the door and raised his eyebrows at me. What was that word you said? The word that meant sad? Melancholy, he said. Melancholy, I repeated. I liked the way it sounded, like there was music hidden somewhere inside it. Good night now, the preacher said. Good night, I told him back. I got up out of bed and unwrapped the litmus launches and sucked on it hard and thought about my mama leaving me. That was a melancholy feeling. And then I thought about Amanda and Carson, and that made me feel melancholy too. Poor Amanda and poor Carson. He was the same age as Sweetie Pie, but he would never get to have his 6th birthday party. Chapter 19. So we learned in that chapter, some of the, a little bit of the backstory game of what happened with the litmus lozenge, but it's comparing this candy to people's lives. And it does have some kind of a magical element. I don't know of any candy that you've personally had, which is able to bring up sad and melancholy feelings. But nonetheless, it is comparing a candy to people's lives. We also learned about Amanda and the death of her 5-year-old brother, Carson, who died in a drowning accident. So we kind of know why Amanda is very short with people, right? Because there's tragedy in her life. And again, there's another character that we learned in the story that has an element of tragedy to it. So there's a lot of people going through a lot of pain right now. Chapter 19 takes us back into where Otis is, and we're going to talk a little bit about Otis and get to know a little bit about his background as well. So yeah, we're going to continue along in chapter 19, and yeah, let's go. So chapter 19. In the morning, me and when Dixie went down to sweep the pet store, and I took a litmus lozenge for Otis. Is it Halloween? Otis asked when I handed him the candy. No, I said, why? Well, you're giving me candy. It's just a gift, I told him, for today. Oh, said Otis. He unwrapped the litmus launches and put it in his mouth, and after a minute, tears started rolling down his face. Thank you, he said. Do you like it? I asked. He nodded his head. It tastes good, but it also tastes a little bit like being in jail. Gertrude squawked. She picked up the litmus launches wrapper in her beak and then dropped it and looked around. Gertrude, she screamed again. You can't have any, I told her. It's not for the birds. Then real quick, before I lost my nerve, I said, Otis, what were you in jail for? Are you a murderer? No, ma'am, he said. Are you a burglar? Burglar is a thief, if you didn't know. No, ma'am, Otis said. He sucked on his candy and stared down at his pointy-toed boots. You don't have to tell me, I said. I was just wondering. Oh, I ain't a dangerous man, Otis said. If that's what you're thinking, I'm lonely, but I ain't dangerous. Okay, I asked, and I went into the back room to get my broom. When I came out, Otis was standing where I left him, still staring down at his feet. It was on the account of music, he said. What was? I asked. Why, I went to jail. It was on the account of music. What happened? Well, I wouldn't stop playing my guitar. I used to be playing on the street, and sometimes people would give me money. I didn't do it for the money. I did it because the music is better when someone's listening to it. Anyway, the police came and they told me to stop. They said how I was breaking the law, and the whole time they were talking to me, I went right on playing my music, and that made them mad. They tried to put handcuffs on me, he sighed. I didn't like that. I wouldn't have been able to play my guitar with them things on. And then what happened? I asked. I hit him, he whispered. You hit the police? Uh-huh. One of them. I knocked them out. Then I went to jail, and they locked me up and wouldn't let me have my guitar. And when they finally let me out, they made me a promise I would never play my guitar on the street again. He looked up at me real good and then back down at his boots. And I only play it in here for the animals, Gertrude, the human Gertrude. She owns this shop, and she gave me this job when she read about me in the paper, and she said it's all right for me to play music for the animals. You play your music for me and Winn Dixie and Sweetie Pie, I said. Yeah, he agreed, but you ain't on the street. Thanks for telling me about that, Otis. It's all right, he said. I don't mind. Sweetie Pie came in, and I gave her a litmus lozenge, and she spit it right out. She said that it tasted bad. She said that it tasted like not having a dog. Again, there's the author really loves to use semicolons, attaching two sentences together under a theme. I swept the floor real slow that day. I wanted to keep Otis company. I didn't want him to be lonely. Sometimes it seemed like everybody in the world was lonely. I thought about my mama. Thinking about her was the same as the hole you keep on feeling with your tongue after you lose a tooth. Time after time, my mind kept going to that empty spot, that spot where I felt like she should be. And chapter 20. So we're getting close to done the book. All right, so a couple of reflections. Realistically, the settings take place in the trailer park, Gloria Dunt's backyard or end house, and the pet shop. So again, the settings are pretty much established now for this book. There's really going to be no surprises that I think that's going to be coming up. So those are the settings. There are no new characters. The characters are well established in the book. The characters in this chapter was Otis, and we also have India Opal, and then we have Winn Dixie there. And we went over Gloria Dump. She reappears in this chapter as well, and the dad. And we start to hear some more backstories. We hear the backstory of Amanda, which is that kind of snobby girl, and we kind of know why she's guarded. And we hear some of the backstory about Otis. So again, the plot really is, this book is a characterization book. I would say like the biggest strength of this book is its character, not its action. It's not an action book. It is a character book. And what the author is trying to do is trying to weave together a bunch of lives that live in Naomi, Florida, and under a common theme. And a lot of authors will do this. They will try to get a message across to their readers. And obviously, Kate DiCamillo is one of the themes is loneliness. And that's interwoven throughout the characters' backstories. Each and every character in here, including Winn Dixie, has an element of loneliness. Winn Dixie had no owner, was going to be taken to the pound at the beginning. India lost her mom. Otis went to jail, and now he's just working at a pet store, kind of lonely. The dad lost his wife. Fanny Block basically lost her whole family. No one's there to talk to her. Gloria Dump, there's no one there to talk to really her until India really comes in her life, and Winn Dixie. Amanda lost Carson. So we can see that there is definitely a theme that's interwoven of loss throughout this book. And it will be interesting to see how the author kind of takes all of these lonely backstories and we're going to see if there is a resolution at the end where people become happier. Hopefully there is. We'll find that out later on. Anyway, there is no discussion question for today's discussion, today's chapters. We're close to being done this book, so thanks for coming for me today. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. All right. See you later.